Hello everyone, welcome in to our live session today. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
I have to point so she remembers to
Oh,
say that.
now I'm allowed to talk. Okay.
She's allowed to talk. So today we're going to talk about how to grow your portfolio, your rental portfolio, and how to leverage the properties you currently have and to create exponential growth in your real estate portfolio. If you don't know us, I'm Clayton Morris. She's Natalie Morris. We created Morris Invest, which is a large turnkey real estate company. A number of years ago, about 5-6 years ago, we started buying rental properties ourselves. Started rehabbing them in the Midwest. Those are our favorite markets, and we started putting tenants in there. We started building a great team, and over the years, it just grew and grew and grew. And now we have clients all over the world who buy properties through us, so we help them do that.
And our brand is really about helping other families and other people who are interested in building generational wealth go along on the journey with us. So early disclaimer, we're not financial advisors. We are real estate investors who help other people to get motivated and get organized and really start on their own journey to build legacy wealth inside of their family. So hopefully you'll join us and go along on the journey with us and learn from what we attempt to learn and learn from our mistakes and maybe don't make those mistakes and grow your family and enjoy financial freedom.
And so on our both on this Facebook channel as well, we've got tons of great posts and videos and resources for you. So like our page. If you haven't already liked our page, click like and become a member of our Facebook page here, because we post a lot of great stuff regularly on this channel. A lot of great blog posts and a lot of great resources for you to take action and become a real estate investor. We also have a great way for you to learn more about real estate investing. We've got a great podcast called the Investing in Real Estate Podcast.
We do have that. That's a show where Clayton tells me what to do and tells me what not to say.
No, that's not true.
This is what it's really like when you're married and you're building financial freedom. You work together. Sometimes you work seamlessly and sometimes you don't.
So that podcast is the Investing in Real Estate Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And our YouTube channel. We've got a great YouTube channel as well where we publish videos 3 times a week over there. And disclaimer, it is a snow day here right now on the East Coast. Kids are home and we're at the home office.
Yeah, we thought we would have the kids at school when we scheduled this day.
I don't know if you can see that.
But it's a snow day, so we have...
Big time
stuck
snow
inside with all of our children.
Yeah, so if you hear the little feet, the little pitter patter of little feet.
Mommy, I can't find that Lego piece.
Right. So we put that disclaimer out there ahead of time. So we will open it up to questions here in a little bit, Q&A. But first, we'd love to hear where everyone's watching from right now. We've got a bunch of live people on here right now, so just type in the chat. And
this is our live number here.
That's our live number there. So over here we have the chat window. So go ahead and tell us where you're from, and hit the like button, by the way, and hit the pound the like button as well, which you can do right here on the live video. So again, we are going to be talking about how to grow your portfolio today and leveraging what you currently have. Hello from Oregon, Nate. Thanks so much, Nate. Welcome from Oregon.
Hello from New Jersey.
Hello from New Jersey this morning. Let us know where you're from. Palm Springs, Philip, great to see you. From California. California in the house. That's where she's from.
Represent. Arizona.
Hey, Kevin. All right. And Arizona. Great guys down there in Arizona. Great to see you guys. And some thumbs. Give us some likes. We appreciate it. So let's kind of more broadly start out about the benefit of real estate investing and why you would want to exponentially grow your portfolio. What would be the benefit of that one rental property turning it into 20 rental properties?
Right. I think when you buy your first rental property, it feels so exhilarating. And then when you get your first check, you're like, awesome. And then you feel like, now what? There's always this sort of moment where you're like, okay, I'm making, somewhere between $500 to $1,000 a month. That feels great. I can't retire on that. Now what? And you realize you've spent a good chunk of your cash on buying that real estate investment, and you want more. And so this is now where the wealthy learn this trick called leveraging. So they learn to take what they do own in order to buy other things.
Right. So one of the first questions you're probably asking yourself is, well, where do I find a great market? So we asked ahead of time a lot of great questions here on our Facebook page. We asked these questions early on, and so a lot of people wrote in with some questions to get kickstarted here. So we'll kind of kickstart with that good place to start. How do you find a great rental market? Well, okay, a couple of key indicators. Employment. I want to make sure that the job base is diverse, that it's not just a one-trick pony, not just one power plant, and that power plant goes out of business, and then everyone loses a job, and no one wants to rent, and things just crap hits the fan, so to speak. So where I like to rent, there are a number of different places. So in Michigan, where we rent, there are, we got Ford, we've got schools, you've got some hospitals nearby. So you've got multiple jobs that are available, and they don't tend to go away in the recession. That's another big thing, is that the jobs that I like to look for, the neighborhoods that we like to rent in are in those C-class neighborhoods, blue-collar tenants that even in a recession tend to stay, right? You've got nurses, you've got postal employees who rent from us, factory employees, and those people tend to keep their jobs in a recession, and that is the case in the 2008-2009 downturn. Those people kept their jobs. It was the people who were making $200,000 a year who ended up losing their jobs. Those are the people that ended up being really hurt, and it's not the people that are actually building the pieces at the factory and driving the milk in the milk truck that end up losing their job.
And what I do sometimes when we're researching a specific suburb of an area, like a suburb of Detroit or a suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina, one silly little tip is to look at the city name on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia will give you demographics of, for instance, how many families live in that town with kids, what's the average age, how many married people live in that town. That's really a good sense of like whether or not it's, you're renting to single people, or you're renting to students, or you're renting to families. And we really, our hope is to rent more to families because there's some stability there. Single people tend to move, the college students move a lot. So you want, that's our goal, is to find, so we're looking at the demographics. Like I said, on Wikipedia has a lot of that stuff. Like, what are the jobs that are common in that area? It's pretty easy to do that kind of searching.
But I want to warn you, though, you can get bogged down in this data paralysis, and it can keep you from taking action. For instance, we invest heavily in Indianapolis. And in Indianapolis, for instance, there are, if you look at crime statistics, it may be, there's a lot of crime. Actually, if you break it down, crime statistics are broken down by zip code. And as any sheriff will tell you, it's a terrible way to measure crime, because that's based on the Postal Service. The zip codes are based on Postal Service, not for areas where you would see pockets of crime. So in Indianapolis, where we invest, I don't worry about crime. Yes, some of the crime might bleed in from a few miles away, and it might affect our zip code in the data, but that is actually not reflected in the neighborhoods that we're located in. But if you're just a keyboard cowboy hanging out doing data analysis all the time, you're never gonna take action. For instance, you might not ever invest in Indianapolis, even though the vacancy rate is super low. That's something else you want to look at. And the crime data actually in the neighborhoods we invest is actually low, but the websites don't necessarily reflect that. So you've got to be really careful about when you're looking at those types of things to not be thrown off course. Another thing that's important.
Also, Rentometer is a good way to, you put in the zip code of where you're looking, and you'll get a sense of, if the rents are really low in a certain place, like $200-300 for a one-bedroom apartment, that's not a very good sign. No, we're looking for rents in the, 600, 700, 800s, 1,000, even better. So you want to sort of look at what's the average rent for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment or house or condo or a duplex in that area, and that will give you a good sense as well.
Another thing you want to look at is construction and what's being built in those particular towns. There's a great piece in the denverchannel.com website just yesterday about how small single-family homes in some of the bigger urban areas are actually the best way to invest right now. Those are our bread and butter. We like buying single-family homes and duplexes. Those are our favorite properties to purchase. And one of the reasons is that builders aren't building those types of houses, those 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses, those starter homes. Millennials are skipping starter homes. They're not buying them. So you know what? Builders aren't building them. But guess what? People still need to rent them. And people love to rent them. They love to be near the downtowns. So for instance, in Indianapolis, our properties are located close to the downtown. So you've got all the shopping. You've got all the movie theaters, restaurants, etc. You've got the factories where a lot of people will work. You'll have Eli Lilly. You've got the hospitals. You've got the convention centers. So, like those benefits of having not a lot of construction and a demand for rental properties in some of the inner cities. That's why we love being near those urban hubs. That's just something to keep in mind. Also, I will say that someone had asked the question here about, we have 2 renovated properties recently in Indiana and they're vacant. Can you reassure us that there should be demand in February and March? Absolutely. In fact, November into December and the beginning of January is probably the slowest time to get a rental or to get your property rented. And if you've got a great property, you want to, and especially if you've got them free and clear, just sit and wait. Wait for a month or two to get through that holiday period. Why? Because you end up getting a lower class, or yes, you probably get a lower class of tenant. If someone needs to move before Christmas, chances are that person probably has an eviction on their record, and they are not likely going to be the tenant you want in your property. So yes, you could have, if you had a bad property management company, they could fill it with a bad tenant, but guess what? That tenant might not pay and be out in February. So right in February, March, and April, that is the best time of the year to get tenants in your rental properties. Why? Tax returns.
Oh.
Tax returns.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, so tax returns.
Exactly what I was thinking.
And a lot of our tenants will love to prepay many, many months on their tax returns. So they get their tax return check back. They want to prepay 4, 5, 6 months. And we literally will, in our markets, will run out of properties to fill for tenants, which means we get to go through and pick the cream of the crop. So if you just have a little patience, then you get a tenant who wants to stay for years. So it's like if you can just wait that extra month and you're not carrying a mortgage on it, you've got it free and clear, wait for the right tenant to get in the property and you're going to be golden. We've got a vacancy on one of our properties right now, and we told them wait till February, wait till this time of year. Actually, 2 of our properties are vacant. Well, 2. One in North Carolina.
Oh, right. No, but that one's under construction still.
Oh, right. But still it's vacant, right? But we have to put in an AC unit right now. But and then one in Indianapolis is vacant. Wait until February when you can get a good tenant in there.
And I rely heavily on our property managers. So a lot of times they'll say, we've got this applicant, but they either have, this or that. Like our property managers really take a close look at the income that the applicants are telling us. They look at their credit. They look at their, maybe if they have a criminal background, they do background checks. And a lot of times our property manager will say, this person qualifies, but there's this thing. Or this person doesn't quite qualify but thinks that they can make the rent if they move in with their boyfriend, kind of thing. And the fear in me is always like, just get them in because then we'll have some money. But I can always tell that my property manager is trying to talk me out of it, but I get to make the final say. So usually I try and see, because they can't tell me like, don't rent to this person because of this, but they can say, we don't think this person can make the rent, so either you can lower the rent or, and they're usually trying to give me that gray area. And
don't rush it. If you don't have to rush it, don't rush it. Wait for a quality tenant.
And before we have done that, like just get anyone in, and that hasn't worked well for us. So, your property manager will make it crystal clear when you've got someone to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
We did that on a property in Pennsylvania. We were it was one of our first, it was like a mistake property we bought years ago. It was like, I don't want to go through the whole story right now, but it was sort of like, it's actually turned out great now. Yeah. But then I did it all wrong.
It's caused many heartache.
Yeah, a little. Anyway, we were sort of like, are we going to get this property rented? Are we going to get, I think I made this mistake.
And the seller was like, oh yeah, it rents for like $800. And we never were able to rent it for that. And
we didn't do our homework.
I couldn't stand this lady. She was always bugging me. Like, oh my goodness.
So anyway, we got it rented, and then like a month later, the person moved out. Right.
And she left us all kinds of trash.
She left her furniture.
We had to pay for it to be cleaned out. It's not like, and the seller, like, it was ridiculous. And like, it was even before it was in our name. So the seller wouldn't clear it out because she's like, I'm an old lady, I can't do it. And so it cost us an extra $500 to clear out. why are we telling this horrible story?
Well, I was just saying the point of rushing putting a tenant in the property.
Okay, right. Yes, yeah.
All right.
There was two people in that property that left us trash. Actually, the tenant from when it was sold, and then and then we were so desperate to get someone in there that our property manager's like, I don't think you should, well, there's these people, let's see. And we're like, that's fine, just get them in. And then they left us trash too.
Right.
And it was like an IKEA big entertainment center that we knew that like if we put on the street, it would just break. It was like we couldn't, and you get a fine if you just put it out on the street. It was horrible.
Yeah. So anyway, point is, don't rush it when it comes to tenants. Get a good tenant in there that you know will probably end up staying for a number of years. That's what you want to go for. So, okay.
Let's go to this question.
All right. So again, if you're just joining us, we are talking about growing your portfolio, and that first question was, how do you find a great market in order to expand your portfolio? So this next question.
Okay. If you're using your property equity for the down payment on your next investment, how does the bank feel on 100% loan to value? Banks don't like that. They don't want to loan you 100% loan to value. In fact, the only way you can really do that these days are VA loans or any of those hardship loans. Well, a VA loan's not a hardship loan, but it's like a specialty loan.
Right. Sometimes a credit union but even it's rare that you're going to do 100% loan to value. Even
the private lenders that we have worked with want 20% equity down. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. And then you're putting, a debt service on 100% of the value. It's just, that's tough. Those are tough to do. I don't know who would do that. Right. I haven't seen. You got to have some skin in the game. You really, I think, the only way you can get 100% debt service on a property is if you're really, really using private money, as in like your mom or your uncle or your buddy.
Right.
So.
Next question. How can you keep building your portfolio? Well, there are a number of different ways to keep building your portfolio. First, I would say you need to start with a goal that you want. What is the financial goal? What is the lifestyle that you want for you and your husband, you and your wife? Where do you see yourselves in 5 years? And so I would start with that question first rather than just artificially thinking I want to build my portfolio. What goal?
Because sometimes more is just more, right?
Right.
You're not building more just to have more. You're working backwards from your freedom number, which we've talked about so many times.
Right. So how can you keep building your portfolio? Well, a number of things. So let's start with the premise that you've got one property free and clear, right?
Yeah.
That to me, well, maybe that's not the right question, because if keep building your portfolio, a portfolio to me is at least 2 properties, maybe?
I don't know. We can make all types of assumptions. We're talking about in general how we build, right?
Okay.
How, and we sort of rushed the concept of leverage. So let's not make a scenario. Let's just talk about the theory.
So leverage is one way. So let's talk about leverage. So now let's say you've got one property free and clear. Let's say the property is worth $50,000, and you're able to find, you're able to get, there's a couple of different ways. Maybe a home equity line of credit on that first rental property that you own free and clear. So you own, it's $50,000. You can get a home equity line of credit usually for up to 75% of the value of that. So what's 75% of 50,000? There's my calculator floating around over here.
Hang on 1 second.
Where is my little calculator? My calculator that I use all the time.
$37,500.
Okay, so $37,500. The bank would give you a line of credit on that particular property. Now, what I love about home equity lines of credit is that it's not a one-time check. They're not just handing you a checkbook or one-time cash lump payment of $37,000, as in the case of a cash-out refinance, which we'll get to in a second. But you're getting that HELOC, that home equity line of credit. Now you can reuse it multiple times. So you could take that $37,500 and purchase another property, free and clear. Now that next property is technically free and clear. Right? Now you've got 2 properties free and clear, but you've got a home equity line of credit that's now maxed out at $37,500. The reason that I like this strategy is that it's not amortized interest in the case of your home mortgage, right? It is it's not amortized, meaning it's simple interest, just like a credit card would be, right? Just like your credit card, it would be simple interest, meaning that the interest accrues monthly. So if you make small little micro payments per month on your home equity line of credit, it's as if the interest doesn't really accrue. So at the end of the year, you'll look at the interest on your home equity line that you've taken out, and you'll be like, whoa, $40, $50, $100, $200, that's what I spent on interest this year on my home, because you were making like weekly little payments back, versus an amortized mortgage that you might get a 30-year fixed or a 15-year fixed rate mortgage with your bank. You're going to end up having a higher rate of interest. You're going to end up paying almost twice what you probably put into it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's just one way is a bank product called a home equity line of credit. But, we've talked many times about private money. You can pool investors and find private money in order to, and then you set your own terms, right? Not just what the bank says. But, I talked about using your uncle or your friend or whatever. And that sounds funny, but really there are a ton of people who do that. We always recommend Susan Lassiter-Lyon's course, Getting the Money, because she really shows you how to find people in your life who are interested in your investment if you're just the one who, manages and puts a debt service on it. And that's worked great for a lot of our investors. So there are a lot of ways to skin a cat. You just have to really open your eyes to the fact that you can be very creative when it comes to money. And we've talked many times about how we thought we just would own our personal property, and then we would go to the bank and see how we can invest in the next one and the next one and the next one. And we don't really use the bank for that. We use the bank for a home equity line of credit. We use the bank to have bank accounts for our LLCs. But other than that, we don't use the bank much for investment. We use some private money lenders for that, and we use cash.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a primary mortgage, it's a killer way of using the equity in your own home, not to buy a boat, not to buy a car, but to use that home equity line from your primary house. That's what we've done. Honestly, that's probably been our best way of exploding our portfolio, is using
the 401k loan.
Right. So every year we'll do a 401k loan, which you can do. So there's two ways you can take money out of a 401k. One is a hardship, which is an actual withdrawal, and you're going to get penalized from it. The other way is a loan to yourself, a 401k loan to yourself. It's your own money. Almost all 401k providers make it very, very simple to do this. Fidelity is what ours. I know Wells Fargo, like your mom bought a rental property through us. She did it that way through Wells Fargo.
And you set the terms, you pay it back yourself with interest. So this is actually a way for you to increase your 401k value, because you are paying the interest to yourself, and the interest is over and above the limit that you're allowed to put. So say you're only allowed, what is it, 16.5?
16,500 a year. That's
you're only
the
allowed
amount
to contribute 16.5, but if you put that 16.5 and you take a loan out, the interest you put back in doesn't count against your 16.5.
So you can go above and beyond, maybe
Right.
upwards of 18 or 19,000 a year in your 401k.
And so these are many tricks. There's many ways. You just have to make yourself familiar with the various products that you can use from the bank, and then make yourself familiar with the various tools that other investors use, like private money and whatnot.
There are so many other tools. For instance, checkbook use of your IRA, checkbook use of a 401k, so you can set up your own individual self-directed 401k.
Right, that's another way.
It's another killer strategy.
It's just a matter of you have to think of money not as something you do according to the bank and the bank sets the rules. You have to think of investment as something that you can play on your own terms. And really that was a great lesson for us, that once we started to think more creatively about wealth building, it ended up being something that we felt like we could be in charge of, rather than just check my 401k and hope that whoever is elected president won't plummet, or that kind of stuff. That's not empowered investing.
Right, that's fear-based investing. Lois writes us, can you get a HELOC on a property in an LLC? And Mark, we'll get to your question in a second here about, about having a hard time pulling money out or the equity in a property. First of all, it depends. You can probably find a lender that would do a home equity line on a property in an LLC. Most of the more traditional routes, though, would require you to do what's known as a quitclaim deed. So deeding it over to your name. Now, it's not a sale, so that means it's not a taxable event, but you're deeding it over to yourself. Then you could go through that process, get the home equity line of credit, and then flip it right back into your LLC again. So there are ways to do that and be creative about having to kind of convert that to get your home equity line. And you might even actually find, the people will do a commercial line of credit. So you can do that as well. Mark asked the question.
That's a good question.
What, Mark's question?
Lois's question.
Oh yeah, good question, Lois.
They're all good questions.
Yeah.
But
Mark has an investment property in Florida paid off, but he's having a hard time pulling out equity because it's an investment property. Well,
yeah,
I'd shop that around. I mean, what are they telling you?
Or?
Mark, just post here in the chat what they're telling you, why they're telling you you're having a hard, what is the response that they're giving you? Maybe we can address that a little bit later in the show here.
I mean, we were able to get a home equity line of credit on a second home.
Yeah, and on an investment.
The terms are different.
It's a rental property.
The terms are different, but...
Yeah, they're not going to give you, it's not going to be 80% loan to value. It'll typically be 75% loan to value of the property. But typically, if it's rented and it's rehabbed and it's up and running, I mean, you're going to be good to go. I mean, I don't see why that should be an issue. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts here. Philip asks a good question here. Even if the HELOC drop is interest only, an interest only home equity line of credit. So there's two different versions of home equity lines of credit that Philip's asking about: an interest only,
or an amortized,
or an amortized version, right? Which one do we have?
We have an interest only one because we try and pay it back within a certain amount of time before it changes. So what we do is we use it, this is a different strategy because I'm talking about using it to pay down the value of your home. Let me think about this. You've stumped me a little bit. Because what we try and do is change the value of equity that we have in our home so that we're able to renegotiate the home equity line of credit. But if you're using it for an investment, I guess you would want to amortize it, right? Because you want to pay it back because you're not assuming that the value in your home is going to change.
Right.
Okay. All right. You made me think through that one.
Hey, Ted is here as well. Hey, Ted, welcome. Natalie writes, my husband is changing jobs and needs to close his previous 401k. What might be his best option to potentially use it to finish an efficiency that we have in our home to rent out? We'd like to use the rental income from the efficiency apartment about 1 to 2 years to purchase another personal home and rent out our current house entirely.
Okay, you want to use the 401k for this. You can roll it into a Roth.
I would say, checkbook use of your 401k. We recently had a podcast episode with Dmitry Formanchenko. I would check that episode of our podcast, the Investing in Real Estate podcast. I would reach out to Dmitry. He's fantastic, and he does the self-directed. He sets it all up with, I think his company, Sense Financial. And what they'll do is they'll talk with you about the checkbook control of your 401k, and it's really powerful because then it lets you invest it however you want to purchase rental properties, to do what you need to do to finish that property off. So that's what I would look into. Check with Dimitri and see what's the best product for you. But checkbook control. That's a good little
trick.
Yeah, checkbook control of your 401k is a killer strategy. So good. So we have some other questions here.
Let's do this one, the pocket listing.
Can Morris Invest help me acquire 20 to 25 properties per year? Yes, absolutely. We move at the pace of our investors. I see a lot of our investors in here today. Ted, Kevin, we got a bunch of other investors in here as well. So absolutely, we can help you grow based on your own growth rate and how you are looking to acquire. We can absolutely help you.
Because let us reassure you that our acquisitions team, we're working really hard. They're working it like Lady Gaga.
That's right. What's the next question?
Okay. If you're buying a house through a realtor, do they have access to pocket listings or other houses that may not be available on the MLS?
So what's a pocket listing?
A pocket listing is when someone in your brokerage is representing the seller and they don't put that house on the open multiple listing service. They then either sell it to someone because they know another buyer who they think is a good match, or maybe someone else within the brokerage has a buyer, so they never actually list it, because all sales happen on behalf of the broker. All real estate agents inside that same brokerage all report to the broker. Everything happens on behalf of the broker. So a pocket listing is like the broker is up here, but one real estate agent has the seller and another one has the buyer, and they match them, so that all happens under the same brokerage, and it never hits the MLS. Now, you're not supposed to do that. And if you do it, you have to get your seller to sign something that says, I agree that you don't put this on the MLS. And the reason you're not supposed to do that is because you're a fiduciary. I am a licensed real estate agent, and we were warned against this really heavily in real estate school, because you have a fiduciary duty to your client to get the highest and best value. And so if you never put it on the open market, you're never going to get the highest and best value. But sometimes I actually sold my condo in a pocket deal because I was okay with the amount that had been offered from someone else, and I understood it, and I was okay with it.
And also,
so sometimes, interrupt me. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say also pocket listings sometimes though they're very temporary. Very often a realtor will have a listing that they just got, and it's probably not in great condition. I mean, let's be honest. Typically, a pocket deal is a deal that comes in and needs some work. It's a desperate situation, and a realtor
Right.
might have it temporarily before they're going to put it on the MLS, and the realtor might say, I'm telling you, we put this out on the MLS, you're going to have... And a lot of people don't want it out on the MLS.
Or they don't want to wait.
Right.
Or they think, but like I said, the terms may be, if you understand it as the seller, what's happening, and you understand these people are offering this, we think that this is the best it can do, and you as a seller agree, fine.
Yeah,
that's okay. The problem with a pocket listing is a lot of times the seller may not understand it, and they may not understand what they're signing. And if they come back to you as the agent and say, you never marketed this and I didn't understand it, you could be in some deep doo-doo as the agent. So a lot of times that's not the best way to find, and really that's not the best way to find good deals. That's not for investors.
Well, I mean, I disagree. I mean, it is for investors. I mean, that's the point of it, right? So that realtor may have a pocket deal, and he's going to say to that seller, look, I have a network of investors that I work with. That means that you're not going to have people traipsing through your house. We're not going to have to put a lockbox on the front of it. We're not going to have to do open houses. I've got a network of investors who will jump on this because it needs, I'm going to be honest with you, Sally, this house needs a lot of rehab. And so somebody like me...
I'm thinking of...
Yeah, somebody like me would swoop in
Right.
and say, I'm going to pay cash. I'm going to buy that house. It needs $40,000 worth of work, and that's my best offer because I need to know where my numbers are. And if that seller is motivated and
Right.
that realtor has paired us together, it's a win-win for everyone. Then they don't have to do open houses. They don't have to put it out publicly on websites. They don't have to have people driving by their house, peeking in windows. So there are some benefits to it. They just need to do it above board.
Right, and you have to think about how the broker is now going to get the commission for the buyer and the seller. And so are they going to be able to represent both sides fairly? And so you have to, for a pocket deal, you have to make sure that you're crystal clear on the price. What I'm trying to say, just because they have such attitude about it in real estate school, is it's maybe not great for if you're selling your own property. But if you're looking for deals and you don't want a house that's then bid up on the open market, obviously it's great for buyers.
Right. So have those connections with your property, with a local realtor that you're building that relationship with. And if, it's a two-way street. So if a realtor knows that you're a real deal investor, the people that we work with know that if someone brings me a deal, we're going to buy it because it's going to need $30,000 worth of work and we're going to do the work on it. We're not tire kickers.
Right.
You know, we're not there just to feel good about real estate. Like, we're going to take action on this property or we're not, and we have money to back it up to do it and take action. So you need to build that relationship with a realtor if you're going to go down that route and finding properties yourself and rehabbing them yourself. Develop that relationship, because if a realtor is going to start sending you properties and taking time to pull properties out of their file to send to you, and then you ignore their emails and you don't respond to them, they're gonna quickly stop working with you. So
Right.
even if you just send a response like, "Hey John, the first property you sent me doesn't work. The numbers don't match. Here's where I need to be on my numbers. Here's what I'm looking for." Oh, okay, great. Then they send you a new property and it's closer to what you're looking for. Let them know that feedback so you can develop that relationship. Otherwise, you're wasting that realtor's time.
And the realtor may know their seller really well and know this seller needs out fast, right? So it doesn't serve this seller to have a 6-month contract period. It serves this seller to have a quick cash close. And in which case they are honoring their fiduciary duty to do right by their client.
Okay, here's another question. How do you manage your property manager, building a strong relationship there? Well, you don't manage a property manager like a good property manager. A good property manager manages your property, and it depends on the type of lifestyle you want. Like, we don't like to, personally at Morris Invest, like, if you come to work with us, there's a level of trust. We are going to do our job, renovate the property, and work with our property management teams to get the property rented. If you are sort of a, I don't want to say high maintenance person, you're like really, you always want to be on the phone every day, finding out how your property's doing. You're sending over, you know, you're driving by your property every day.
Well, you have to really take to heart the fact that this is what we're promoting here is a lifestyle of passive income. And the key word here is passive. And so when you buy a house to live in, clearly you want the inspector inside your house, like running the water and, you know, looking at the floor. And Clayton always jokes that, you know, when we buy a house, he needs to be there with the inspector, because I'll go in and be like, it's fine. So, you know, like, oh, you missed something, it's fine, because
You're talking about primary residence.
when we buy our primary residence, right? But when you buy a house for investment, you want the inspector there to tell you, are the bones of the house good, so that you can build on it. And what else? Like, you know, there's a great piece in the Susan Lassiter Lyons course where she had this inspector come for an investment, and he was like picking through the floors with like a fine-tuned comb, and she's like, get out of here. I want you to tell me, are the bones good? Is the roof good? Because I can build from there. I know what I'm capable of.
She has 500 properties.
And she's like, get out. Like, she basically kicked this investor
because
out
you have
for
to
telling
remember,
him about the condition of the carpet. Because she's like, I'm redoing the carpet. Like,
yeah.
This is what I would need to know. So you need to. Why are you saying to me then?
Well, no, because we were talking about property managers.
But you were going down around. Why am I even here?
We were talking about property managers. Like, how do you manage a property manager? My point is, you're not managing a property manager when
Right.
you've got a good
The point
team.
that I'm trying to make is that, you know.
No, I just would love to hear.
I quit.
I would love to hear how you come back to.
You were talking about how people shouldn't be high maintenance.
No, right. I'm saying from a property management perspective, like, you're a property manager who is managing your property and getting it rented and tenanted, doing criminal background checks and making sure that it's rented and taken care of.
Right.
And if there's a maintenance
My
request,
point
they
is,
handle
you're
it.
not like fussing about the curtains with them. Like, hey, did that like little, you know, like thing? You know,
Gotcha,
they're gonna,
right.
you know, you're gonna have trust that they're taking care of these like high level things, right?
So you shouldn't have to. My answer to that is you shouldn't have to manage your property manager. They should be handling this themselves, and you should put your faith in a good property management team that you're going to collect rent checks on a regular basis. But you really need to be honest with yourself. Like, if you're like the type of person that Natalie's talking about, where you like to fuss over the cords on the blinds, and you love to know the paint color, and you love to be in there doing all that stuff,
then you're watching too much of those real estate shows.
And you're also increasing the anxiety of the team that you're working with. Like, let them do their job and put your trust in them to do their job. Or if you're not comfortable with that property management team because they haven't rented it, it's vacant for 6 months. I talked to an investor the other day out of Memphis, and he's got a property that's been vacant for 5 months now, 5 or 6 months. Something was stolen off of his electrical box on his property. So I would have conversations with that property management team and find out, did you make, why was that property, why was there an eviction in that property? Because they had an eviction on this particular tenant. The person didn't pay for 5 months and then squatted in the property. Well, okay, what did your screening process look like? That's a good question to ask. And so you want to find out, do they do a criminal background check like the ones that we work with do? Do they verify employment with their current employer? Do they check with previous landlords to make sure they pay on time so you don't get someone with an eviction on their record? Look, you're going to have a bad tenant. It's going to happen. If you've got a portfolio of 30 properties, you're going to have an eviction at some point. It's going to happen. So, you don't want to think that it's always going to be roses, but you got to just build that into your thought process that this is business and it's going to happen, and you're dealing with human beings, and it's part of the process, right?
Right. Although I've thought recently about how I can, either say, because sometimes there are things that I feel like there are things you need in your, like we've talked about, your Dropbox of organization. Like, you need your contract with your property manager. What are they responsible for? What do you pay them, etc. You need the property manager to send you the lease once it's all signed and done with the tenant that's in there. You need to keep track of your insurance, all of that kind of stuff. And so I've recently thought about setting myself reminders, because we have around 30 properties now, and that's hard for me to keep in my mind. Like, did they send me that contract for that new tenant? And so I'm thinking about how I can organize that better and set myself reminders, because you do need to, they can't do they can't.
They're not your employee in that
right
way.
They're going to send you that stuff, and they'll keep it on their end, and they should be able to have it for you if you ask, like, hey, I lost that lease, can you resend it? But you need to have it too, because your insurance agent, when it comes time to re-up those properties, they're going to say, is this property still rented? The insurance underwriter, some of the underwriters want to see the contract, so you should have that handy. So it is important to be organized. And you probably don't know the episode number. We have a whole episode number about how to keep organized in the Investing in Real Estate podcast, because I think it's really important.
Look it up.
Yeah, because that was around the beginning of the year where we talked about how to make sure that you're super organized. Those things are really important to have your systems in place.
Yeah, and another thing that's important too with your property management team is like when you're getting a property management team together. Hold on, let me pull it up here. It was
How to Organize Your Real Estate Investments, episode 100.
So, episode 100 of our podcast, Investing in Real Estate, on how to organize your real estate investments. So check that out. We went through strategies on how to do all that. Can you walk through the process of pulling a property out of an LLC to take a HELOC out to buy another one and then putting it back in the LLC? Sure. Let me just finish this thought on the property management, Philip, and I'll get to that question in a second. When you're talking with property management companies, sometimes you will find out that the way that they sell themselves to you is important. Listen to how they sell themselves to you. If they want to talk to you about the software that they use, the bells and whistles of the software that they use, and how they will market your property, and how you can go online and kind of check the status of certain things, that's great. I would be more interested to know what they're focused on internally. And the property management teams that we work with in Michigan and in North Carolina and Indianapolis, their main focus is they don't really care about the software. Like, that's not their main focus. What they care about is cash flow and making sure they're putting a proper tenant in the property. And they also have team members who will go out and make sure that even during the holidays, when tenants may want to spend more money on their gifts than they do their rent, that they're knocking on the door, making sure that rent payment is coming in. Very important. It's nice to have software.
I care about the software.
You care about the software, but do you also care when your property is vacant for 6 months because they spent money on software and they didn't spend money on focusing on the cash flow and getting the properties rented? That's what I care about. So, those are the things you want to make sure that you're focused on.
I like to see that my receipts are automated. We had one new property manager recently that sent us like a big statement in the. I was like, "Where's my statement, you guys?" And they're like, "Oh, it's coming in the mail." I'm like, "In the mail? Like, I don't want it in the mail." And
That's
then
how they do it down south.
It came in the mail, and it had literal receipts, like that the contractor had written out. Like, you want me to keep that? Okay. So I have to now put it in a folder, in a file. And I'm just not used to that. I like to see those things digitally. Like, scan me that receipt and send it. I don't need the actual, you know how I feel about receipts and bisphenol.
But there's no cookie cutter solution. I guess what Natalie's saying too is there's no cookie cutter solution. There's no one size fits all.
It's my prerogative to like it the way I like it.
No, and I'm saying even just the organization of our rental properties and our portfolio of stuff, you know, there's no one way. Like you just said, you're trying to figure out the best way to organize. And
right. And when this property manager, they're like, this is the way we work for things. So, you know, in this market, we've been testing out a few different property managers, and I'm like, I don't like it this way. I don't want a receipt from, you know, like for screws or whatever. Like, if I need that, I will ask you, and I'm gonna, you know, like the way I usually get it from my other property managers is just like, we hired this plumber. Here's the, you know, receipt attached to the. It's just goes in my Dropbox. I never have to touch it. So it's just one more thing for me to have to look through. And I'm like, what is this?
Philip,
I like it the way I like it.
So Philip asked the question, can you walk through the process of pulling a property out of an LLC to take a HELOC out to buy another one and then put it back in the LLC?
A title person does that.
Yeah,
Either a title person or a lawyer.
It depends on your state. So it depends on, you know, lawyers will handle closings in certain states. And for instance, you're in Florida, title company will handle your closings in Florida. In North Carolina, a lawyer will handle closings. In Indiana, a title company will handle closings. And they can assist you in structuring that and pulling those things out. But you could talk to a real estate attorney.
It usually costs about $100 for them to prepare, and then you have to get it notarized, the deed, and then you send it right back. We're transferring some of our properties from one LLC to another, and the county that we're doing that in is making us pay a transfer tax for that. So there could be some other costs involved depending where you do it. The one we were talking about in Pennsylvania. Is going to be a little bit more expensive than others. So make sure you talk to your lawyer and figure that out.
Right. So good question, Philip. Hope that answers that. And a few more questions here we'll get to and we'll wrap it up. If you need more, paying off mortgage versus purchasing a rental property. The question, this is the ultimate, you know, should you pay off a mortgage versus purchasing a rental property? Now, I would assume what that person means is with this question, your personal mortgage. And my personal answer on that is it depends.
Good one.
Good, because it really does depend. I mean, it really depends on, you know, do you have leverage in that property? Do you have equity? How much is your payment? For instance, let's just say you have a mortgage that's like $4,000 a month. And you bought a house for like $1 million or something crazy, right? And does it make sense for you to focus all your time, energy, and attention on paying off your $1 million mortgage? Or would it be better for you to take the cash that you have coming into your life and buying $40,000 rental property and then another $40,000 rental property? And then very soon, those numbers are, you've got 10 properties, 15 properties. And that cash from those rental properties covers your mortgage payment. So you can create that passive income that's now covering the $1 million home that you bought. And then you can focus your attention on taking that cash and just drilling it right into your, into your primary mortgage you want. It's hard to justify, though.
You have to remember that the primary mortgage is probably your most desirable product that you've got financially because it's got a low interest rate, most likely, and that's just something you can kind of let burn and churn because you've agreed to those terms, and you do want to play the interest game. We talk a lot about paying it down, and you want to do that slowly but surely and beat the interest game. But if you think you can do better in a rental market where you're making 11, 12, 13% back on your money, you don't want to wait to get started building up your investment. When you've got your primary home that, again, is it's a pretty good product, most likely.
Here's another question. How did you choose your first property? And then how did you move on to your second and your third? I chose my first property by flying in and meeting with a distressed realtor. Not well, he
Didn't
wasn't
you see
distressed.
he was like commenting on forums, like he was looking to work with investors?
Yeah, in Michigan, he specialized in sort of foreclosures and short sales, and that was his specialty. So I contacted him, flew in, and ended up like looking at like I don't know a lot of properties. But at the end of the day, I didn't even need to go there. I did, I guess, because I didn't have a team. So at the time, I was sort of still setting up my team, my contracting team, all of those pieces. I didn't have any of that. So when I was starting, I was just kind of trying to piece all this together. And I overpaid for the properties. I paid too much. I paid more than I should have.
Not by that much, though. This guy did
Yeah,
right by you. He
yeah, it
actually
wasn't bad.
was used to working for working with investors.
But I guess I spent too much on the rehab. I over upgraded. I did more. I shouldn't have did like hardwood floors. I went up. I think I went above and beyond on the rehab when I probably didn't need to.
Yeah, we used a friend's brother.
And he's a great contractor,
Yeah,
but
that's how we found him.
but I ended up like over upgrading the kitchen. I actually put in appliances, and I didn't need to do that. Most of our properties we don't even provide appliances, and I put in all brand new appliances and washer and dryer, and so learning curves, right? And then
He did a really good job, but I don't think he had a team, did he?
no, he
It was
did it
just
solo.
him,
Yeah.
yeah.
He might have subcontracted out the floor redoing.
Right.
But other than that, so and then from there we started to see it. I guess we saw that the cash flow was coming in, and for us it was a no-brainer. It's like, okay, and I guess it's the mental thing. Once you see that first rent check come in, then it's like, okay, now I see how this works, right? That first rent check comes in, and it's kind of and there's no parade, there's not like kids running around with balloons going, you got your first rent check. It's kind of like, this is what the smart investors know. This is how it works. You start getting rent checks in a rental property if it's done properly. And so rent checks started showing up, and we said, well, let's start replicating that.
Yeah,
Let's
we
buy
said,
a
"That's
second.
good."
Let's buy a third. Let's buy a fourth. And we started to build that. That's how we came up with the freedom number and so forth. So one thing I would suggest is here in the link in this video, if you're interested in sort of expanding and taking action on your rental portfolio and getting funding, we actually just started a new process, getting business lines of credit with 0% interest. And it basically uses business credit cards. So it's not against your personal credit. And we just started going through this process, and it's been fantastic so far. On my website, on morrisinvest.com/funding. So the link is right here in this post, morrisinvest.com/funding. Go there, check it out, and get on the phone with them and see if it's a fit for you. But I think you can be approved for up to like $50,000 up to like $250,000 to $300,000, which could let you pick up 6-7 rental properties.
But you just have to get really used to understanding the terms of money. There are so many different ways to get money, and you have to just know, like, what's the terms? What's the time limit, the interest rate, is it amortized? Like, just get really used to evaluating financial products, because that will serve you not only in your investment life, but also in your personal life too.
Right.
So like I said, there's lots of ways.
And then finally, last question, HELOC versus a cash out refinance. Well, we've talked about the home equity line of credit, which we love. A cash out refinance, basically they're going to look at the value of your property, and they're going to give you a lump payment based on the equity in the property and the value of that property. I don't know. I'm a bigger fan of the home equity line of credit if you can get it.
The refinances is an expensive product, though, because a lot of times they charge you about $5,000 to do that.
To do the cash out refinance.
And then they add that to the value of your loan. So say you owe $1,000 and you're $100,000 and you're refinancing. And it costs $5,000 to do it. Your new loan balance is $105,000, right? Because they just added that to the value. They don't always, but it tends to be a pretty expensive product. So
there you go.
Yeah, look into that. Some people are desperate. Some banks are desperate to do it for you now, so they might do it for cheaper. But I can't. They're gonna get their money out of you in some form or fashion. Whereas the home equity line of credit, they intend to make their money on interest rates, and we have paid. The bank that we use charges us $70 for that closing. Like literally, we bring a check for $70.
Yeah.
To do that, which is great.
Love it. Love the home equity line of credit. Raheem is in the building. All right, Raheem, welcome. Thank you so much.
Building?
in this building, and he got here at the last second. But you can watch the replay if you.
I don't think he did because we still got a snowstorm going on.
Raheem, are you in the building? We still got the snowstorm that's not letting up. We've got about 10 inches right now outside, and the kids are off school today. So yeah.
So we got to get out shoveling soon.
Well, some of us do. While you're sitting back with the baby, I'll be out
thanks.
shoveling. Raheem, I think Raheem is just getting started taking action in real estate investing, and I'm so thrilled. I know he's been over, I think, on our YouTube channel, checking out our YouTube videos. We publish our videos 3 times a week over on our YouTube channel. We've got some great content over there that we've been trying to, basically any question that kind of comes in, I'll try to build a video around it and try to answer it as in deeply as possible and try to build like an encyclopedia for real estate investors to kind of go out there and take action and get started. And I know, Raheem, you also, I think, did the Freedom Cheat Sheet. I saw your response to that. So thank you so much for doing that, and hopefully that helped you get your head around taking action in real estate investing.
Work.
Thanks, guys. Any questions you have, you can continue here in the comment thread. We will jump into the comment thread throughout the day and answer them, and we'll see you back here. We're going to try to do these pretty regularly now, right?
You're telling me.
I always have to twist her arm.
Because really, he's telling me.
Even though, like, she'll put stuff in my calendar, and it's like, well, you know, you've got this dance class with the little girl. You got to take her there. You got to go to this doctor's appointment. And then this is the one thing I put in her calendar, you know, every week. And she's like, oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. So anyway.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Love you all. Go out there, take action, and become a real estate investor. We'll see you next time, everyone. Have a good one.